There is a kind of girl every school has near the top of it. Loud, confident, well-dressed at the center of things. The one whose opinion the other girls check before they form their own. She does not seem to work at it. She simply seems to have arrived already knowing she belonged there. You have met her, most people have. And most people, if they are honest, felt a small flicker of something looking at her. Not quite envy and not quite dislike. The particular feeling you get around someone who seems to have been handed the ease you had to earn. She did not seem to have earned it. She just seemed to have it. At this school at the top of the bottom class, that girl is called Kei Karuizawa. And her story is not the one it looks like. It is one of the darkest in the entire series, and I want to say that plainly at the start, because we are going to walk through some difficult things before this is over, and the calm way I am going to tell them is deliberate. This is a channel for drifting off to. The gentleness is not me pretending the story is soft. It is me carrying you through a story that is not. I will also promise you this. There are parts of what happened to her that the source material describes in detail, and I am not going to dwell in those details. You do not need them to understand her, and a person drifting off to sleep does not need them at all. What you need is the shape of the thing and the meaning of it, and those I will give you honestly. The rest I will name and move past. That is not me hiding anything from you. It is me telling her story the way it deserves to be told, which is with the weight left in and the cruelty not lingered over. Because in the end this is not, despite everything, a story about the terrible things done to a girl. It is a story about what was still standing after them. But we begin where the school begins, which is with the surface, because the surface is the whole point of her. The school does something useful early in the first year. It pauses, and it shows you Horikita's private assessment of her classmates, as text on the screen, the school describing its own students in its own words. And the entry for Karuizawa is worth reading almost in full, because it is the official version of her, the one everybody is meant to see. One of the students at the top of the Class D hierarchy. Because of that, she influences the female students on a level comparable to Kushida. At the moment she is dating Class D's effective leader, Yosuke Hirata, which is strengthening her position. She is easygoing and a bit frivolous. She is reckless with money, and blew the 100,000 points she initially received on fashion and accessories. Afterwards she got most of the girls in the class to give her some of their points, and used them to finance her lifestyle. She often seems to lack caution and consideration, but unlike Pseudo, she shows no signs of causing problems. That is the school's verdict, frivolous but harmless. A spoiled girl at the top of a social ladder, dating the right boy, spending other people's money. Notice the two clues sitting in it that nobody is meant to notice yet. Her influence is described as coming from dating Hirata, and her worst behavior, the point borrowing, is a small, ruthless, perfectly executed piece of social engineering dressed up as being careless with cash. Hold both of those, they are the whole story in miniature. And notice one more thing, which is who is writing that assessment. It is Horikita, sitting in judgment of a classmate she has no particular reason to like, producing a cool and accurate summary of her from the outside. Horikita, of all people, the girl Karuizawa singles out for contempt, is the one whose private read of her the show chooses to put on screen. There is something quietly ironic in that. The two of them will spend the whole first year as social opposites, one obsessed with the hierarchy, and one refusing to acknowledge it exists. And it is the one who refuses to play whose assessment turns out to be the clearest eyed. Horikita does not care about Karuizawa's position, which is exactly why she can see it so plainly. Everyone caught up in the social game around Karuizawa sees a queen. The one girl standing outside the game sees a structure, and describes it correctly as a structure. That is worth remembering as we go, because the people who understand Karuizawa in this story are precisely the people her armor was never designed to fool. The ones who are inside the social world she rules are the ones most completely taken in. It is the outsiders, the ones who do not care about the throne, who can see it is only a chair. Let me show you the point borrowing, because it is the clearest single look at how she actually operates, and the show gives it to you in one short scene. She goes to Kushida cheerfully and says that it is so funny, she spent all her points on accessories and is totally broke now, and she was thinking of borrowing a couple of points from all the girls in class to buy the essentials. And then she adds, "You are one of my best friends, aren't you? Just 2,000 points would be enough." Kushida says sure. And Karuizawa says thanks, it is great to have friends. Read that again knowing what you now know about how this school works. Every one of those points is real money. She has just extracted a subscription, a standing flow of income, from a dozen girls at once, and every one of them handed it over gladly, because she framed it as friendship, and because saying no to the girl at the top of the class is not a thing they are willing to do. It is called being frivolous with money on her assessment. It is one of the more efficient pieces of extraction anybody in that class performs all year, and she does it with a smile, in about 15 seconds, and the victims thank her for the privilege. And here is the thing to understand about that scene, because it is the key to reading her for the rest of this. It is not greed. She does not particularly need the points. What she is actually doing, every time she does something like this, is testing and reinforcing her position. Each girl who hands over points has in that moment confirmed that Karuizawa is above her. The money is almost beside the point. The transaction is the point. It converts a vague social ranking into a concrete act of submission, banked, repeatable, and it means that when she needs the class to move a certain way, the girls have already been trained to say yes to her. That is not how a frivolous person behaves. That is how someone behaves who has decided, with total seriousness, that they will never again be at the bottom of a room and is building the machinery to guarantee it. She just built the machinery out of eyeliner and borrowed pocket money, so it does not look like machinery. It looks like a spoiled girl, which is exactly what it is designed to look like. That is the surface, and the surface works completely. The school buys it, the class buys it. Her entrance grades are a wall of low marks, D- for academics, D- for intelligence, D for physical ability, and an E+ for cooperativeness, which is her worst mark by a distance and which reads, on paper, as exactly the profile the school files in the bottom class without a second thought. There is one grade on that card that does not match the rest: decision-making, her judgment. That comes in at a C-, well above everything else on the sheet, and it is the entrance assessment quietly noticing something the persona is designed to hide. There is a calculating mind under there. The school clocked it before she said a word, and then filed her under frivolous anyway, because a calculating mind wrapped in a spoiled girl is not a threat the school knows how to categorize. Now, why is she in Class D at all? The school's classes are not sorted by grades alone. Class D is the class for students the school has decided are defective in some specific way, and each of them is there for a reason. Karuizawa's stated reason is her low grades and her frequent unexplained absences during middle school. Sit with that second half, unexplained absences. The school looked at a girl who had missed a great many days of middle school, assumed illness or truancy, marked it as a defect, and put her in the bottom class for it. The school never learned what those absences actually were. We will come to that, and it is the center of everything, and it is worse than the school ever guessed. For now, hold only this. The thing the school filed as laziness was the visible edge of something it had no idea about, and the loud, confident girl it decided was frivolous had built that loudness on top of it, deliberately, as a structure. It is worth dwelling on that one grade for a moment, the C- in judgment, because it is the school being cleverer than the school usually is. The entrance assessment is not a person. It is a process run on everybody that produces 5 numbers, and for almost every student, those 5 numbers roughly agree with each other. A strong student is strong across the board, a weak one is weak across it. When the numbers disagree sharply, it means the process has caught a contradiction, something about the student that does not fit their own profile. Karuizawa's numbers disagree sharply. 4 of them say bottom of the class. One of them, the one that measures judgment and decision-making, says something markedly higher. And judgment is precisely the faculty you would expect to be developed in a person who has spent years reading rooms for danger, working out in an instant who is safe and who is not, calculating exactly how to position herself to avoid being hurt. That skill does not show up as academic ability or physical ability. It shows up as judgment, and there it is on her card, a full grade band above everything else, the fingerprint of a mind that has been solving a very hard problem for a very long time. The school recorded it and did nothing with it, because a sharp mind wrapped in a spoiled girl does not trip any of the school's alarms, but it is there in the record from the first week for anyone who bothered to look. Almost nobody did. One person eventually will, and it will not go well for her. And then there is Hirata. On the surface, in the first year, they are simply a couple, the most popular boy in the class and the girl at the top of the girls. They are constantly together. She calls him over to her friend group. He carries her things when she asks. The school's database profile for Hirata records it as plain fact that he is dating Kei Karuizawa, a central figure among the Class D girls, and is often seen with her around the school. The anime in the first year gives you no reason at all to doubt it. It is presented straight, with no wink, no hint, nothing. They are a couple, and being his girlfriend is the source of her status, exactly as her assessment said. That relationship is not what it appears to be either, but the show is patient about it, and so we will be. In the first year, it is simply true, and it makes her untouchable, and untouchable is the only thing she has ever wanted to be. It is worth being precise about what being Hirata's girlfriend actually buys her, because it is not romance and it is not company. It is a specific kind of insurance. Hirata is the most trusted, most liked, most defended person in the class. He is the one everybody goes to, the one nobody wants to cross. And a girl standing next to him, claimed by him, is standing inside that same field of protection. To move against Karuizawa, you would have to be willing to move against Hirata, and nobody in that class is willing to move against Hirata, so nobody moves against Karuizawa. She worked this out and secured it within about 2 weeks of arriving at the school. That is the detail the wiki keeps returning to, 2 weeks. She did not drift into the most protected social position available to her over the course of a year. She identified it on arrival and closed it almost immediately, which is not the behavior of a girl who wants a boyfriend. It is the behavior of someone who walked in already knowing exactly what she needed and went and got it before anyone else could. And the strange, quiet tragedy underneath that, which the show only reveals much later, is that Hirata knows. He is not being used without his knowledge. The arrangement is mutual, and he has his own reasons for wanting exactly this and nothing more, and the two of them are running a shared fiction that suits them both. But we are not there yet. In the first year, you are meant to see a couple, and you do. You can watch her defend that position in small ways all through the early episodes. On the island, when the class is arguing about how to survive the week, she is the voice of the girls, pushing for a proper toilet over the basic one, and when Yukimura says something dismissive about women being emotional creatures who become irrational, her answer is immediate and sharp. Say that again, jerk. And her contempt has a specific target, which is worth noticing because it will matter later. It is aimed at Horikita. When she runs into her after the summer break, she says with a bright cruelty, "Oh wow, Horikita, you're not dead. I have not seen you at all since break started." And then gathering her friends, "Let's go, Hirata. I guess Horikita does not want to talk to us." It is the behavior of somebody policing a hierarchy. Horikita sits outside the social world entirely, refuses to participate in it, does not care about her place in it, and that is precisely the thing Karuizawa cannot tolerate, because Karuizawa's entire life is built on place. A person who does not care about the latter is a threat to everyone standing on it. There is something almost revealing in how much energy she spends on it. A genuinely secure person at the top of a hierarchy does not need to snipe at the one girl who has opted out of the whole game. It costs nothing to ignore Horikita, but Karuizawa cannot ignore her, and the reason is that Horikita represents the one thing Karuizawa cannot allow herself to believe is possible, which is that you can simply not play and be fine. If that were true, then the entire elaborate structure Karuizawa has built, the boyfriend and the borrowed points and the loud, confident performance, would be revealed as a cage she chose rather than a throne she won. So she needs Horikita to be wrong. She needs the girl who opted out to be pitiable, isolated, not dead only in the sarcastic sense, because the alternative is unbearable to look at. None of that is stated on screen, but it is all there in how disproportionately she reacts to a classmate who has never once done anything to her. So that is where the first year finds her. At the top of the class, loud and adored and feared, financed by her friends, shielded by her boyfriend, sharp toward anyone who threatens the arrangement, and filed by the school as a harmless, spoiled girl. Every piece of that is a wall she built on purpose. And I want to make sure the cleverness of it lands, because it is easy to hear the word wall and picture something crude, and what she built is not crude at all. It is a beautifully engineered structure, and every part of it does a specific job. Loudness is not just noise. A loud person is a person nobody worries about, because the thing you fear in others is what they are hiding, and a girl who broadcasts everything appears to be hiding nothing. The spending is not just vanity. It builds the network of small obligations that keeps the other girls beneath her. The boyfriend is not just status. He is the specific individual whose protection is broadest and whose displeasure is most feared. The contempt for outsiders is not just cruelty. It patrols the border of the group and reminds everyone what happens to people who fall outside it. Put it together and you have a machine whose only purpose is to guarantee that Kei Karuizawa is never, under any circumstances, the person at the bottom of a room. Every component points at that single outcome. And she built it alone, out of nothing, at 16, in her first 2 weeks at a new school, before anyone there knew a thing about her. That is not the work of a frivolous girl. That is the work of somebody who learned, the hardest way there is, exactly what it costs to be unprotected, and resolved never to pay that cost again, and then executed the resolution flawlessly. The tragedy of it, which you only feel fully once you know the rest, is that no wall is ever quite high enough for a person who learned to build walls the way she learned it. She is safe, and she does not feel safe, and she never will, because the feeling she is chasing is not really about the present at all. It is about a past that no amount of present safety can reach back and fix. And there is one small incident on the island that is going to turn out to matter enormously, though it looks like nothing at the time. Somebody steals her underwear from the camp. It becomes a whole ordeal. A girl wakes the boys at dawn to announce it. Karuizawa is in the tent, crying, being comforted, and she is not shown, which is its own small detail worth holding. Stay on that detail for a second, because the show made a choice there. The girl at the top of the class, loud and commanding and always visible, is at the center of a crisis about her, and she is off-screen for it, hidden in a tent, crying where no one but her closest friends can see. The confident version of Karuizawa cannot be crying, so when she cries, she does it out of sight, and the show honors that by keeping the camera out of the tent. You are being shown, without being told, that there is a version of her that exists only where nobody is looking. You will meet that version properly later, on a lower deck of a ship, and it will not be gentle. The class searches every boy's bag. The underwear turns up in Ikei's bag. Ikei panics and shoves them onto the quiet boy sitting nearby to hide them, and then, when the search escalates to a pat-down, that quiet boy is found holding them. His name is Ayanokoji, and Hirata, frisking him, looks the class in the eye and lies, says Ayanokoji does not have them either. Afterwards, privately, Hirata asks him whether he did it, believes his no, and asks to keep the underwear himself. And he explains why, in a line that is the first real crack of light into what he and Karuizawa actually are. I am the one who would be least damaged by being named the culprit, he says. I am her boyfriend, after all. On first watch, that is devotion, a boy protecting the situation for the girl he loves. On second watch, it is a man servicing a contract. And the difference between those two readings is the entire hidden machinery of her life, which we are about to open up. Because that small, ordinary theft is the first time Kei Karuizawa and the quiet boy who would come to own her are put in the same frame with any weight at all. He notes, dryly, that he seems to recall her calling him invisible and inoffensive. He was paying attention. He is always paying attention. And she has no idea yet that the most dangerous person she will ever meet has just spent an afternoon quietly filing her away. To understand what happens to her in the second year, you have to understand what the loud, confident girl was built on top of. And this is the part that is hard to say gently, so I am going to say it plainly and then let it sit. Kei Karuizawa was bullied badly for years before she ever came to this school. The anime does not lay out the details, and I am not going to invent them, because the specific catalog of what was done to her belongs to the novels, and I will not put words in the show's mouth. What the anime does is the harder, quieter thing. It shows you the shape of the damage without narrating the events, and it lets you understand from her body what her mouth will never tell you. What is clear on screen is this. Whatever happened to her went well beyond ordinary cruelty. It left a physical mark on her that she hides from everyone, that she cannot bear to have seen. And it left something underneath that runs deeper than the mark, which is a specific, total terror of being physically cornered, a terror completely out of proportion to any threat a high school could actually produce. You do not see the past, you see the girl the past made. The show is careful about how it does this, and it is worth admiring even in the middle of something so grim, because it is a genuinely elegant piece of storytelling. It never sits you down and explains her. It never gives you a flashback narrated by a sad voice. Instead, it gives you a single moment where the confident girl from the first year, placed under real physical threat, simply stops being that girl. The performance falls off her in an instant, and what is left underneath is a body that has learned to go still and wait for the hurt to be over. And because you have spent a whole year believing the performance, the collapse lands like a revelation. You do not need the list of what happened to her. You just watched a year of armor come off in 3 seconds, and you understand, immediately, that armor that thick was built around a wound that deep. That is the anime trusting you to do the arithmetic. A confident person does not need armor. This much armor means this much fear. This much fear means something happened. You fill in the rest yourself, and because you filled it in yourself, it is more real to you than any flashback would have been. And once you know it is there, the entire first year rearranges itself. The loud confidence is not confidence. It is armor, welded on, worn every waking hour. The scramble to the top of the class in the first 2 weeks was not ambition. It was a survivor getting behind the strongest wall available before anyone could work out she was a target. The boyfriend is not love, it is a shield. The borrowed points are not greed, they are a ranking, a way of making concrete, over and over, that she is above and not below. The contempt for Horikita is not snobbery, it is a girl who cannot afford to believe that opting out is survivable. Every single thing that looked like a spoiled girl at the top of the class was a fortification, built by someone who had learned, in the worst possible way, what happens to the person at the bottom. He does not seek justice. Notice that because it is the truest thing about her psychology as the anime shows it. She never tries to report or escalate or fight back or expose the people who hurt her. That is not what a survivor of that kind of thing necessarily does. What she does instead is attach. She finds the strongest available person and gets behind them. Hirata is the first, and the whole structure of her life is not a plan to win. It is a plan to never be caught in the open again. It is worth putting her beside the other girls of Class D for a moment, because the series is quietly building a set of variations on the same theme, and Karuizawa is one of them. Kushida, the friendliest girl in the class, built a mask to be adored, because being adored was the thing that once felt like safety and then was taken from her. Horikita built a wall of competence and contempt, because needing people had only ever led to being disappointed by them. And Karuizawa built a fortress of status, because being at the bottom of a room had nearly killed her. 3 girls, 3 constructed personalities, each one a response to a specific wound, each one so convincing that the class takes it for the real thing. The school put all 3 of them in the bottom class, because a manufactured self is exactly the kind of defect the school is built to detect, even when it cannot say what it is detecting. What makes Karuizawa's case the starkest of the 3 is that her wound is the most physical and her armor is the most fragile. Kushida's mask can take a hit and stay on. Horikita's wall is genuine competence and does not depend on anyone, but Karuizawa's fortress is made entirely of other people, the boyfriend and the girls and the borrowed status, and a fortress made of other people can be taken from you by anyone willing to threaten the people it is made of. Which is exactly what is about to happen to her. There is a detail worth adding here about the boyfriend, because it makes the whole arrangement sadder and more human than it first appears. Hirata is not being deceived. He knows it is not a real relationship because he agreed to that from the start, and Hirata has his own reasons for wanting exactly this, a girlfriend who is not really a girlfriend, a relationship that keeps other people at a distance without ever asking anything real of him. So the 2 of them are not predator and victim. They are 2 damaged people who found in each other a mutually convenient fiction. She gets a wall, he gets to be left alone. Neither has to be truly known by the other, which is precisely what they both, for their own reasons, cannot bear. And she is one of the very few people Hirata knows the truth about, because she told him about her past, and the reason she trusted him with it is the reason the whole thing works. When she told him, he did not recoil, and he did not pity her. He simply accepted it and asked nothing, and offered the arrangement. That is the one thing Hirata gives her that is genuinely valuable, beyond the status. He is the first person who learned the worst of her and did not treat her differently for it. It is a small mercy, and it is real, and it is why she trusts him as far as she trusts anyone. The limit of him, the thing that eventually ends it, is that Hirata will give her status, but he will not give her war. He has told her plainly that they are not really a couple and that he will not fight anyone for her, that when there is nothing he can do, she cannot lean on him. It is honest. It is even kind in its way. But it means the wall she has chosen is a wall that will not defend her when defending her costs something. And that limit is going to matter enormously, very soon, because someone is about to come along who understands walls better than she does. The trouble with a wall is that the right person can see it is a wall. Almost nobody at that school is the right person. To everyone in Class D, she's simply what she presents as, the loud girl at the top, and they take the performance at face value because they have no reason not to, and because seeing through people is genuinely hard. The armor works on the whole class for a whole year without a single crack showing in public. But the school did not fill Class D with ordinary people. It filled it with the most unusual students of the year, the ones with the strangest gifts and the strangest defects. And one of those students has, as his particular talent, the ability to look at a person and see the mechanism underneath, the way most people cannot help but see the surface. He is the worst possible person for a girl living behind a performance to be sitting a few desks away from. And he has been quietly watching the whole class since the first day, cataloging, and she is in the catalog. And in the second year on a cruise ship, the most dangerous person in the school looks at her and sees, not a confident girl, but a fortification, which means he sees the thing the fortification is protecting, and he decides he wants it. I need to be honest with you about what happens next, because it is the center of her story and softening it would be a lie. This is the darkest thing the protagonist of this series does to anybody, and he does it to her, deliberately, and it works. His name is Ayanokoji, and I have covered elsewhere what he is. For now it is enough to know that he runs Class D from behind the scenes, that he is more capable than anyone around him understands, and that he regards other people, in his own words, as tools. He looks at Karuizawa and he does not see a person who has suffered. He sees a person who is extremely good at controlling the girls of the class, and he decides that this ability would be useful to him, and he sets out to acquire it. It is worth being exact about how he first notices her, because it tells you everything about how his mind works. They are placed in the same group for an examination, and he expects her to behave the way she always behaves, loud and dominant, taking over the room, and she does not. She shrinks. Somebody speaks to her and she answers and then immediately withdraws into herself. Anybody else would see a girl having an off day. He sees an anomaly. The behavior does not match the profile, and a mismatch between behavior and profile is exactly the thing his mind is built to notice and pull on. He does not think that girl seems upset. He thinks that girl is not what she appears to be, and I would like to know what she actually is, and whether it is useful to me. That is the coldness at the root of it. He is not drawn to her by cruelty or by desire. He is drawn to her the way a lockpicker is drawn to a lock that is subtly different from the others. There is a mechanism here that does not fit, and he wants to open it and see how it works, and it does not occur to him, or it does not weigh with him, that the mechanism is a frightened human being. The way he acquires it is the part I have to tell you carefully. He does not befriend her. He does not earn her trust. He engineers her isolation and then exploits her deepest fear to force her under his control, and he does it in cold, deliberate stages. First, he makes sure she will be attacked. A group of girls from another class had a grudge against her that was already cooling, already fading into nothing. He goes to them and he lies, tells them something that reignites the grudge deliberately so that they will come after her. The bullying that is about to reveal her is not bullying he witnesses. It is bullying he arranges. Then he lets it happen. When the group corners her and it turns physical, he is there, and he does not stop it, not at first. He watches, because a girl who has been frightened badly enough will be easier to rebuild afterward into the shape he needs. He is entirely aware of what he is doing. The story does not hide it or excuse it. And then when she is at her lowest, alone and shaking and certain the one person she relied on has abandoned her, he arrives, and he does not comfort her. He corners her himself. He tells her he knows what she is, that underneath the school and the status and the top of Class D, she has not changed at all, that she is still the bullied girl she has always been. He physically pins her so she cannot look away. He recites what was just done to her. He makes clear he knows about her past, all of it, and then he threatens to expose that past to the entire school unless she does exactly what he tells her to. And the coercion goes further than words. He makes her believe he might take her body, touches her, makes her comply with things out of fear, watching the whole time to see how far she will go to protect herself. He never intends to complete any of it. It is a test. He is measuring exactly how controllable she is, and the answer he gets is total, and he files it, and he moves on. I told you this was the darkest thing in the series. It is, and the show does not frame it as a rescue, and I will not either. He inflamed her attackers, watched her be hurt so she would be easier to break, and then broke her the rest of the way himself, using the one weapon that would work, which was the thing she was already most afraid of. The wiki states his motive without any softening at all. To elevate her and let her grow, he set out to break her down so that he could personally build her back up, forcing her to seek him for refuge. That is the transaction, protection in exchange for total obedience secured by fear. And here is the thing that makes her a genuinely great character rather than simply a victim, and it is her line in that moment, not his. Because when he does all of this, when he has her cornered and terrified and completely in his power, she does not beg, and she does not fall apart in the way you would expect. And what she does in that moment is not what you would expect, and it is the first sign of who she really is underneath everything. She asks him why he is not laughing. She tells him more or less that this is not the first time someone has used force against her, that after a while she gave up trying to resist, that she was everyone's victim, that she became cold, robotic, that she could cry or scream or thrash and none of it ever mattered. And then she asks him, "Why are you not laughing at me? Why do you not laugh at the pitiful loser who has been bullied her whole life?" That is not the line of someone who has been beaten. That is the line of someone who has been beaten so many times she has come out the other side of it into something like contempt for the whole process. She's daring him to be like everyone else. And the fact that he is not what she expected, that he shows no disgust, no pleasure, nothing, is the first thread of what will eventually, much later and on her side first, become something no one watching this scene would predict. But that comes later. In this moment, all that has happened is that a broken girl has been broken further and handed a protector she has every reason to hate, and she takes the deal, because the deal is survival, and survival is the only thing she has ever chosen. The arrangement, stated plainly, is this: she works for him, she does whatever he needs whenever he needs it. Concretely, she controls the girls of Class D on his behalf, because a class that moves as one is a class that can climb, and she is the lever that moves the girls. And in return, he protects her, using leverage he now holds over the very people who hurt her. He even makes the protection real immediately, and this is the detail that binds her to him. The photographs he secretly took of her being attacked, he turns those on her attackers. He makes the group that came after her stand down, not with kindness, with blackmail, the same tool he used on her, pointed the other way. And it works. They leave her alone. And the very first thing he uses her for shows you how completely the arrangement is a working relationship and not a personal one. The examination, they are in the middle of turns on hidden identities, and there is a role he needs concealed. So the two of them swap phones. He unlocks the handset, moves his own information across, and hands her old phone off to a classmate as a decoy, so that anybody trying to work out who is really who ends up pointing at the wrong person. Karuizawa plays her part, displays exactly what she is meant to display, and the misdirection holds. She was terrified of him an hour earlier. Now she is running an operation with him, smoothly, competently, because that is what the deal is. He did not break her in order to have power over her for its own sake. He broke her because he needed a functioning instrument inside the girls of Class D, and now he has one, and it works on the first try. That is the coldness of it. The whole afternoon, the isolation and the fear and the coercion, was set up. This was the payoff, and the payoff is that a difficult examination goes his way because he now has a reliable peace where before he had an unpredictable one. So she has, in the space of a single afternoon, been isolated, terrified, coerced, and then protected, all by the same person, and she does not yet have any way to separate the protection from the cruelty, because they came from the same hand in the same hour. That is how Kei Karuizawa stops being Hirata's girlfriend, in every way that matters, and starts being Ayanokoji's instrument. I want to pause here and be honest about the difficulty of this, because it is the thing that makes her arc genuinely hard to hold, and pretending it is simple would be a disservice to her. There are two ways to tell this story, and neither is complete on its own. One way says, a powerful boy identified a vulnerable, traumatized girl, engineered her abuse, and coerced her into servitude using her deepest fear, and no amount of what came afterward erases that this is what he did. That version is true. Every word of it is on the screen, and the show does not soften a single beat of it, and anyone who tells you Ayanokoji is simply a cool protagonist has not sat with what he did on that ship. The other way says, a girl who had been surviving on borrowed protection, hollow and frightened and going nowhere, was forced by a terrible pressure to discover that she was far stronger than she or anyone knew, and became, over time and by her own choices, more herself than she had ever been allowed to be. That version is also true. It is also on the screen. The series does not resolve those two readings, and it is a better series for refusing to. It would be easy to make him a villain or make him a savior. Instead, it makes him a person who did a monstrous thing for a cold reason, and it makes her a person who was genuinely damaged by it and genuinely grew through it, and it lets both of those sit in the same body at the same time without dissolving into each other. That is a hard thing for a story to do, and this one does it, and I am not going to collapse it into something tidier just because tidier would be easier to fall asleep to. Hold both, she was wronged badly by the person she becomes closest to, and she became, through the whole ordeal, someone strong enough that by the end you are not afraid for her anymore. Both, at once. That is the character. It is worth staying a moment with what this does to the Hirata arrangement, because it does not end cleanly. She still needs Hirata at school publicly for the status, so the fiction continues on the surface even as the substance of it is gone. She had, during all this, actually turned on Hirata, screamed at him that he lied about protecting her, that he was supposed to keep her safe. And Hirata, gently and truthfully, told her what he had always told her. That they were never really a couple, that he would give her status but he would not fight a war for her, that when there was nothing he could do, she could not lean on him. He was right, and it was kind of him to be honest, and it left her completely exposed at the exact moment she most needed a wall, which is precisely the gap that the other boy walked into. So the shape of it underneath is this. Hirata was a wall that would not fight. Ayanokoji is a wall that will fight and win, and the price of standing behind it is that it owns her. She does not know yet that she has traded up. From where she is sitting, at the end of that terrible afternoon, she has simply lost the one safe thing she had and been handed to something colder in its place. What she cannot see, and what the rest of her story is about, is that the cold thing is also, for reasons neither of them fully understands, the first person who ever looked at the worst of her and did not flinch. For a while, being his instrument is simply what she is. She controls the girls of the class for him, she does what she is asked, and the arrangement runs quietly under the surface of an ordinary school year. She has a protector who actually protects, which is more than Hirata ever was, and if the price of it is that he owns her, she has been owned before, and at least this owner keeps the wolves off. It is worth pausing here on the strangeness of her situation, because it is genuinely unlike anything else in the series. Every other student at that school who works for somebody does it for a reason they can name. Ambition, fear, loyalty, money, a place in a class. Karuizawa works for Ayano because he cornered her and made her, and the arrangement began in the worst way an arrangement can begin, and yet day to day, it does not feel to her like being enslaved. It feels like being safe. That is the uncomfortable thing the show is doing, and it does not blink at it. A protector who arrived through cruelty is still, functionally, a protector. The girls who used to be able to hurt her cannot anymore. The social position she guards is guarded better now than Hirata ever guarded it. And so, in the ordinary run of days, she finds herself in the odd position of being grateful to the person who did the worst thing anyone has done to her recently, because the worst thing came bundled with the safest she has felt in years. You are not supposed to be able to hold those two facts at once. She holds them at once, because she has always had to hold impossible things at once, and this is just one more. And somewhere in there, quietly, without her deciding to, something starts to shift in how she sees him, and she could not tell you when it began or why. We will come back to that because it matters, and because the show is careful never to let it become simple. And then, near the end of the second year's second season, everything she is gets tested at once, in the single most important scene of her life. There is a boy running Class C called Ryuin. He is the most ruthless student in the year, and he has worked out something nobody else has, which is that Class D is not really being led by Horikita. Somebody is hiding behind her, running things from the shadows, and Ryuin has become obsessed with finding out who. He calls that person X. And he works out that Karuizawa is the thread that leads to X. He gets there through the girls who attacked her on the ship. When he leans on them, they tell him everything, including that someone had held photographs over them to make them leave Karuizawa alone. Someone protecting Karuizawa with blackmail. That someone is X, which makes Karuizawa the way to reach him. It also hands Ryuin the one weapon that works on her, which is her past, the thing she will do almost anything to keep buried. And the timing could not be worse for her, because at exactly this point her protector has gone quiet. Ayano has, for reasons of his own, stepped back and cut off contact with her. She cannot reach him. She is isolated, confused, and unguarded at the precise moment the most dangerous person in her year decides to come for her. There is a cruelty in that timing that the show does not spell out but clearly intends. The one time she truly needs the wall she traded everything for, the wall is not answering. She had given up Hirata's protection, in substance, for Ayano on the understanding that his was the real thing, the one that would actually fight. And now, when the danger finally comes, he is nowhere, and she is standing in the open again, exactly as exposed as the day she arrived at the school, exactly as exposed as she has spent her entire life trying never to be again. If you wanted to design a test of whether her protector was worth what she paid for him, you could not design a better one than this, and for most of what follows, she has no idea whether he is coming at all. The signs that something is wrong build slowly. Around Christmas, she notices a student from Ryuin's class following her. Then her line to Ayano goes dead. Then Ryuin and his people walk into Class D openly, high-handed, making a show of it, and she can feel the net closing and has no one to call. Before the rooftop, it is worth understanding why she is the perfect target, because it is not an accident, and it is genuinely clever on Ryuin's part. He needs two things from whoever he grabs. He needs them to actually know who X is, and he needs them to be breakable so that they will tell him. Most of the people close to Ayano fail one of those two tests. The ones who might know his secret are mostly too strong or too guarded to break easily. The ones who could be broken mostly do not know anything worth extracting. Karuizawa is the rare person who fails neither test and passes both. She knows exactly who X is because she works for him directly. And she carries in her past the one pressure point that Ryuin has just been handed, the buried history she will do anything to protect. She is, in other words, simultaneously the most valuable source and the most fragile one. Every quality that makes her useful to Ayano is the same quality that makes her the ideal victim for Ryuin. The intimacy that lets her serve him is the intimacy that makes her worth grabbing. She was made into a key, and a key, by its nature, is the thing you take when you want to open a door. Ryuan takes her to a rooftop. What happens up there is hard to watch, and I am going to tell it to you plainly. He has her held down. On his order, water is dumped over her head again and again. She collapses and she shakes, and inside she is reliving every terrible thing that was ever done to her, because this is exactly the shape of it, the cornering and the helplessness and the cruelty for its own sake. Ryuan hauls her up by the hair and tells her she is the kind of person who was born to be bullied, that people like her do not change. And over he asks her the same question: who is protecting you, who is X? And she will not tell him. She has a way out, and it is explicit. Name the boy and it stops. She refuses. And her refusal at first is not even about loyalty. It is tactically sharp, which tells you the calculating mind under the persona is still working even now. She points out that if he exposes her past before she gives him what he wants, he throws away his only leverage over her. She's being tortured on a rooftop, and she is still finding the flaw in his plan. So Ryuan changes weapons. He stops attacking her body and attacks the one thing holding her together. He tells her the truth about the ship. That X, the person she has been protecting, the person she trusts, is the same person who engineered her assault in the first place, that she was never rescued. She was trapped deliberately by the very hand that then offered to protect her. That is the blow that actually lands, not the water. The water she has survived 100 times. What nearly breaks her is being told that the one safe thing she had was a lie, that the protector was the architect, that she had been played from the very beginning. And here is the moment the entire character turns on. Given that truth, told that the man she is protecting used her coldly and deliberately, offered the clean and total way out, she still refuses. No matter how many times you ask me, she tells him, I will never, ever tell you. Sit with what that is. She has just been handed proof that Ayanokoji orchestrated the worst afternoon of her recent life. Every reason to give him up has just been placed in her hands, and she looks at Ryuan and refuses, on a rooftop, soaked and shaking, with nothing to gain and every reason to talk. When Ryuan asks her why, her honest answer is that she does not entirely understand it herself. She just wanted to be cool, all the way to the end. She wanted, for once in her life, to be the kind of person who does not break. And Ryuan, who respects almost no one, tells her she is worthy of his respect. It is worth understanding how large that is, coming from him. Ryuan's entire philosophy is that everyone breaks, that human nature does not change, that people are levers and every lever has a point where it gives. He has spent the whole scene proving it to her, telling her she is the type who receives cruelty and always will be, and she has just disproved his entire worldview to his face by not giving, when every model he has says she should have. A lesser writer would have Ryuan simply get angrier. Instead he stops and recognizes that he has met something his philosophy did not account for, and says so. From Ryuan, respect is not a compliment. It is a man revising his understanding of what a person can be. There is one more thing worth noticing about her refusal, and it is the saddest and the strongest part of it. She's not protecting Ayanokoji because she believes he is good, or because she trusts him, or because she has been told he loves her. She has just been informed, credibly, that he engineered her suffering. She has no illusions left to defend. She's protecting him anyway, and the reason, in the end, has nothing to do with him at all. It is about her. It is the one decision in her whole life that is purely hers, made for no advantage, owed to no one, and she will not let anyone take it from her, not even by torture, because it is the only thing she has ever owned outright. That is the thing to understand about Kei Karuizawa, the girl the school filed as frivolous, the spoiled girl at the top of the class, the one everybody underestimated, turns out to have, at her absolute core, an unbreakable spine. Not the armor breaks, something underneath the armor does not. And then he arrives. Ayanokoji comes to the rooftop. She is shocked and asks why he came, and his answer is that he made a promise, that he would come for her if anything ever happened. He declares himself X to Ryuan's face and says he has come to take her back. Ryuan threatens to expose them both, and Karuizawa, still soaked, still shaking, cuts him off, and this is the second time in one scene she chooses him under fire. If everyone is going to find out about Ayanokoji, she says, then Ryuan might as well reveal her secret too. She puts her own protection on the table to shield his. Ryuan throws her aside and sets his enforcer on Ayanokoji. And Ayanokoji, who has been hiding what he is for the entire series, stops hiding and defeats all of them, and she watches, unable to speak, as the quiet, invisible boy turns out to be something else entirely. Afterwards he offers her his hand and asks the question that matters: why did you not sell me out? And she says it was for my own sake, trembling, and then she falls into his chest and admits that she was scared. And he does something he almost never does, which is tell the truth about himself. He tells her she has recreated her present by overcoming her past. He admits out loud that he is the one who hurt her. He says he will not ask her to forgive him, and he tells her that if it ever happens again, he will absolutely save her. That is where the two of them actually begin, not with the coercion on the ship, which was a takeover. Here, on a rooftop, with him admitting what he did and her choosing him anyway with her eyes open, knowing exactly what he is. I want to be careful about how I frame this because it would be easy to tie a bow on it and call it a love story, and it is more complicated than that. He still hurt her. That happened, and the show never pretends it did not, and he himself never pretends it did not. What changes is that she is no longer being controlled by fear. She has looked at the whole of it, the manipulation and the cruelty and the protection, and she has made a choice, and the choice is hers. The girl who never chose anything except survival has, for the first time, chosen a person with full knowledge, under no coercion at all. Whether that is healing or just a subtler kind of attachment, the show leaves genuinely open, and I am going to leave it open too, because the honest answer is that it is both. The second year moves her into a new role. She's no longer just the girl who controls the other girls. She becomes, in effect, his field agent. He assigns her an investigation, tracking down where a knife was bought, and she phones him the results, and that intelligence turns out to be exactly what he needs to dismantle a threat. She's doing real, competent, useful work now, out in the world, and she is good at it. Notice what that promotion actually represents, because it is easy to skate past. In the first year, she was a tool he pointed at the girls of Class D, an internal instrument for managing the class. In the second year, he trusts her with real intelligence work, sends her out to gather information the outcome of an examination depends on, and relies on what she brings back. You do not hand that kind of task to someone you merely control. You hand it to someone you have come to depend on. The relationship has quietly changed shape, from owner and instrument to something closer to a partnership, even if neither of them would use that word, and even if it began somewhere it should never have begun. And she is genuinely good at it, which matters, because it means her value to him is no longer just the leverage he holds. It is her actual abilities, the sharp judgment the entrance card noticed in the very first week, finally being used for something other than her own survival. The girl who spent years reading rooms only to stay safe now reads them for a purpose, and it turns out that a skill honed in fear is still a skill, and a formidable one, once it is pointed at something larger than hiding. And the school's own numbers quietly confirm what she has become. When the second year introduces its rating system, the 4 scales that measure every student, Karuizawa's overall score is near the bottom of the class, 13th of 16, dragged down by weak grades and a poor conduct record left over from her first year. But one of the 4 numbers is completely different from the rest. Adaptability, the scale that measures reading a room, communication, knowing how to move inside a social world. Hers is the 3rd highest in the entire class, above Horikita's, above Ayanokoji's own. The school built an instrument to measure who can actually read and move people, pointed it at the girl, everyone dismissed as a spoiled airhead, and it came back and said she is better at it than the class's 2 great strategists. That number is the persona quantified. Everything she built to survive, the reading of hierarchies, the management of the girls, the instinct for exactly where the power in a room is sitting, the school measured all of it and rated it near the top. She was never frivolous. She was operating a sophisticated survival machine the whole time, and the machine, it turns out, is genuinely excellent. You can even watch her grow in the numbers if you compare her second year to a snapshot of her first. 2 scales move, and only 2. Her ability to read a room and her conduct. Her body and her books stay exactly where they were. What changed is precisely the part the arrangement with Ayanokoji operated on. She did not get smarter or fitter. She got steadier and more embedded, and more in command of the social world, because for the first time she had a foundation solid enough to build on instead of just a wall to hide behind. By the end of the animated story, she is in a real relationship with him, a secret one, and the secret is a source of ongoing tension because she has to hold her position in the class while nobody knows why she gave up Hirata. A couple of people work it out. The scene where Ichinose does is worth telling properly, because it shows you the woman Karuizawa has become when she is not performing and not being tortured, just talking to another girl in a park. Ichinose, the leader of another class, is a genuinely good person, the most sincerely liked student in the year, and she has heard that Karuizawa dumped Hirata, and she cannot make sense of the reason she was given. So she confronts her directly and asks whether Karuizawa is seeing Ayanokoji, and warns her that she cannot go on treating her as a friend if she lies about it. And Karuizawa tells the truth. that they have been together since the spring. And when Ichinose asks when she fell for him, Karuizawa gives an answer that costs her something to give, which is that it was when Ichinose herself came to her once for advice about him. She fell for him while helping a rival think through her own feelings for the same boy. It is an almost unbearably honest thing to admit, and she admits it. Ichinose slaps her, and then immediately apologizes. And Karuizawa apologizes too, and says she has no right to be angry because she was hurt by him as well. And Ichinose says quietly that they fell for the same man. And Karuizawa, the girl who spent her whole first year policing hierarchies and sniping at anyone who threatened her position, pulls the rival who just slapped her into a hug. Two girls who both got hurt by the same quiet boy, holding on to each other in a park. It is the least defended Karuizawa has ever been on screen, with someone who is not Ayanokoji, and she chose it. Nobody cornered her into that hug. The girl who only ever attached to power out of fear reached out for the first time to someone with nothing to offer her but shared pain, and offered comfort instead of taking shelter. That is not the girl from the first year. That is somebody who has been through something and come out larger. And she has been read into the danger now. She knows there is a bounty on her boyfriend. She knows people are trying to remove him from the school. She knows enough to be frightened for him rather than just for herself, which is its own kind of progress. A girl who spent her whole life afraid for her own survival, now afraid for somebody else's. There is a small scene in the second year that captures how far she has come, and it is almost domestic, which is the point. She comes to his room to study. He tests her with practice papers, and in the course of it she needles him until he admits something he has never admitted to anyone, that he throttles his own academic ability on purpose, that he could score full marks on any examination if he stopped hiding, that he has never met a question he could not answer. She is the person he says that to, not Horikita, not anyone in the class. The girl he manufactured in a quiet room over practice papers, and then she asks him to sit next to her and teach her, and he does. Think about the distance from the rooftop to that room. From a girl held down under buckets of water, protecting a boy she had just learned had betrayed her, to a girl sitting beside that same boy while he quietly tells her the truth about himself that he tells no one else. Whatever their relationship is, and it is not simple, it has become a place where the most guarded person in the school lets his guard down, and the person he lets it down for is her. He also, in that second year, does something that would have been unthinkable in the first. Facing the bounty on his head, he tells her plainly that he will not team up with her for the coming examination, because being close to him would put her in danger. The boy who once deliberately walked her into danger to control her now keeps his distance from her to keep her safe. He does not say it sweetly. He says it flatly as a fact. But it is the exact inversion of how they began, and neither of them remarks on it, and that is somehow more moving than if they had. The animated story leaves her there, safe for now, attached genuinely for the first time by choice, stronger than she was measurably in exactly the ways that matter, and with her story unfinished because the next stage of it has not been animated yet. It is worth saying a word about where the story does not go, because the animation stops at a particular point, and I am not going to walk you past it. What has been shown is what I have told you, up to a class climbing back from the bottom and a girl standing at the end of it, safe and attached and stronger than she was. The next chapters of her life exist in the novels, but they have not been animated, and I would rather leave you at the true edge of what the show has told than reach past it into material the story has not yet reached. So this is where we stop, which is where the anime stops, with her arc genuinely unfinished and the important questions about it deliberately open. So what do you do with Kei Karuizawa in the end? She is one of the hardest characters in this series to sit with, because her story contains a genuinely terrible thing done to her by the person she ends up closest to, and the show refuses to let you look away from it or excuse it. It would be cleaner if he had simply rescued her. He did not. He broke her on purpose and then rebuilt her to his own design, and she is, in a real sense, a person he manufactured. And yet the spine on that rooftop was hers. The refusal was hers. The choice afterward, made with open eyes, was hers. Whatever he did to her, the thing that would not break under Ryuin's water, was not something Ayanokoji put there. It was always in her, underneath all the armor, all the way down in the girl who decided, a long time ago in a much worse place than this school, that she would survive whatever they did to her. The school looked at her and saw a frivolous girl with unexplained absences. The absences were the worst years of her life. The frivolity was armor a centimeter thick over a wound that nearly killed her, and underneath even that, past the armor and past the wound, was something the bullies never reached and Ayanokoji never made and Ryuin could not break. She just wanted, once, to be the kind of person who does not fall apart. And on a rooftop, soaked and shaking, with every reason in the world to break, she got to be exactly that. There is a way of measuring a character that has nothing to do with whether they are good or powerful or clever, which is simply to ask what they would do at the worst moment of their life, when there is nothing to gain and every reason to fold. Most people, honestly, do not know the answer for themselves and are lucky enough never to find out. Karuizawa found out. She was put in exactly that moment, deliberately, by someone who was very good at breaking people, and the answer turned out to be that she does not fold. Not for pain, not for fear, not even when the one thing she was holding on to is revealed to be a lie. That is rarer than intelligence and rarer than strength, and the school has no test for it, and the assessment card does not have a column for it. And Ryuan, who thought he understood exactly what human beings are, did not believe it existed until he watched her do it in front of him. So when people talk about Kei Karuizawa, they usually talk about what was done to her, because a great deal was done to her, and it is right to take that seriously. But I think the truer thing to remember about her is not what she survived, it is what survived in her. Underneath the loud girl and underneath the armor and underneath even the deep old wound, there was a small, hard, unbreakable thing that no one ever managed to reach, and at the one moment it was fully tested, it held. She spent her whole life afraid she was weak. She was one of the strongest people in the entire story, and it took the worst day of her second year to prove it, and she proved it not to the school and not to Ayanokoji but to herself. That is where we will leave her, not fixed because people are not fixed, not finished because her story is not finished, just further along than she began, standing up with the worst behind her and something genuinely her own in her hands at last. Sleep well.